Mere conservatism.
Okay, now, so you were saying you just voted.
I did. I've never voted early before.
What's
why? Me and my wife kind of
made
plans. We sort of made plans to vote together on Election Day, and I told her today, I was like, I really want to go ahead and do it because there have been really long lines.
Oh my goodness, haven't there been? I mean, seriously.
There's a lot of enthusiasm to vote this year, which I think is good. And I guess what I was thinking is that I didn't want to wait until the last day to vote and then it be an issue. Like there be lines or me have other things I have to do that day.
Or God forbid, and I hate to even say this, suppose COVID were to hit.
So because of that, I thought to myself, maybe I should just go ahead. What I did is I went to one of my local early voting places. We have two. And I went to the one that I heard through the grapevine was less busy. And I told myself, if I go and they're busy, I'll leave. I'll come back another day. I've got a couple weeks to do this. But if they are not busy, I'll go ahead and vote. I'll get it out of the way, and then I don't have to worry about this being an issue later. So that's what I did. I voted.
Well, that sounds eminently practical.
My wife was disappointed now because now our voting date has been ruined. We had a date planned. We were going to go vote.
Okay.
But I'll take her to vote. I'll take her.
I just think it's. You're probably smarter to do it. I'm so traditionalist. I just want to wait for voting day. But I'm really thinking it's probably better to go ahead and get it done, not only because of the long lines, because you just don't know the future. And we know what I'm going to vote. I know there's no chance of me changing my mind about what I'm going to vote. So why not?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I decided and decided to go ahead and knock it out. I mean, because God forbid something happened to me between now and the election. I might pass away and vote Democrat.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, if you came back as one of the undead, you would have to be a Democrat. No doubt about that. By the way, that's over there, David Perry, who's a fan, by the way, of The Walking Dead. Aren't you? You like that show?
Yeah, I do.
I'm not. I'm Cleve Walker, and this is...
Your name is Walker.
Yes.
And you don't even like the Walkers. You know they call them the Walkers.
I do know. I hear too much about it. Just not a big fan of the undead walking around, except, of course, defeating them when they vote Democrats. And this is Mere Conservatism. And David, as always, we got so much to get to, and we know that we will not get to all of them.
So here's what I'm thinking, Cleve.
Okay.
And I know we won't get to all of it, but I can't help but think that the enthusiasm gap has to be noticed. In my area, I live in one of the most conservative areas probably of the country.
By the way, also named one of the greatest places to live.
Yeah,
that's another story.
It's on a list. But, that's changing a little bit as people move in from around the country, probably. But I can't help but think that the early voting lines in my area might suggest a lot, the enthusiasm for Donald Trump. I don't know that everybody there voted for Donald Trump. I'm sure they didn't. But in my area, most people do. And so the enthusiasm there is noticeable.
Sure.
I think that there might be something to it. Trump definitely has an enthusiasm gap. The majority of people say that they're better off than they were 4 years ago.
The poll most recently released
the majority of people say that they think Trump is going to win the election.
That's right.
But the polls also say that Joe Biden has a double-digit lead. So it's very curious. The polling and the information that's coming out, it's very strange. And I think it's, in its own way, it's stranger than 2016 because there was no incumbent in 2016. The election was totally different. It was a totally different animal. Now that Donald Trump is the incumbent, the polling, the meaning of it changes a little bit. And so I'm really curious to see how it turns out because if you didn't know the national polling numbers, you would think that Donald Trump was leading just based on the better off than you were 4 years ago poll, the enthusiasm gap, and the poll about who people think is going to win. It's strange.
I'm only going to say this once.
No, you're not. You're going to say it over and over again.
No, I'm only going to say this once. I say it all the time, but I just got to say it once. That's because you are seeing the mirage that has been projected by the mainstream media. They have painted a picture that is not reality. They're good at it, though. And their polls and their machinations and what we're going to talk about, as a matter of fact, their ability to literally block out the expression of anything other than their narrative is beyond my comprehension that they're allowed to do this. So those who don't see these things, they get the perception, wow, it's really looking stark. Not so much. And as by way of my example, David, the New York Post, you've heard about the article that they post that alleged that Hunter Biden's laptop found at a computer repair shop in Delaware contained email exchanges with an advisor of Ukrainian energy company Burisma when he was on board for the company, and his father was then at that time vice president. One email conversation even suggests a meeting was scheduled between then Vice President Biden and Burisma executives. Now, speaking on an exclusive interview on Fox Business, Varney and Company, President Trump had a little something to say about that.
Joe Biden is a corrupt politician. I've been saying it for a long time, and everybody in Washington knows it, and the mainstream media doesn't want to cover it. They put the story on page A17 of the New York Times, and they took a lot of the teeth out of it.
And not only that, but folks who tried to post the New York Post story on Twitter or on Facebook found that they weren't having it.
First of all, Cleve, I'm disappointed that you included the story in our broadcast today because you're going to get us banned. You're going to get us throttled and all that stuff.
You know something? I'm laughing at you right now, but see, that's the atmosphere to me of a future if we don't corral this thing now.
There's a couple of different levels to this story, as there are with a lot of these things these days. So one is the story itself. So the New York Post has these emails. What I'm hearing is that a lot of news organizations might be looking at them to check the veracity of those things, to double check things to see if they're, if it's legit. The New York Post is they're not a tabloid.
Right.
Now they're not liberal leaning. They're probably more conservative leaning.
They're an established paper, though.
Yeah, but they're not a tabloid. So this is something to take seriously and look at. If these are legit emails, this is a really big problem because it confirms the conspiracy theory, so to speak, of what we have known about Hunter Biden for a long time.
Even if they were not legit, David, which I actually believe they are, but even if they weren't, if the shoe is on the other foot, would the liberal media need this much vetting and time to examine the alleged statements before they ran with it?
And we know they wouldn't need to because they tried to impeach Donald Trump over this kind of thing.
Right. Anonymous sources were all, many of them they had in some of the other stuff they put out too. So no, I don't buy this thing. Well, we gotta vet it first before we treat it like serious news.
So we knew already that Hunter Biden was peddling influence to get rich, peddling his father's name, and this seems to confirm that. What we didn't really know is that Biden was in on it. We thought maybe
because he said he was not.
We thought maybe at worst he was looking the other way. Okay, which is bad enough. But if he was meeting with these people, then you have to think that he was probably in on it or knew a whole lot more about it than he was letting on. That's really bad for him. It's a scandal.
Why would Hunter Biden be getting millions of dollars if he was not doing something?
Well, we see why.
Yeah,
we see why because it's in the emails.
Right,
it says because he's going to get us access to.
So they weren't just. He didn't have any expertise in the field that he was supposed to be needed to be in on that board. So this is the only thing he can offer: access to his dad. And now we may have finally the smoking gun that shows, he gave them access to his dad.
But nobody is really running with this, and the reason why, and this is the other part of the story, is the censorship around this. This is so scary.
I've never seen it like this. I mean, never seen it like this.
But we could foresee this, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen this exact thing happen, but we could foresee Twitter and Facebook and other places doing this because they have kind of started to do this anyway. Block conservatives who are trying to disseminate information, who are doing stories or various other things. Now they have apparently blocked this story from getting out. They've throttled it so it doesn't get exposed as much.
Facebook has done that.
They have canceled accounts of people who have shared it, like the White House spokesperson.
Well, like President Trump himself, his Twitter post was a Twitter ban.
Cleve, I don't like government regulation. I do feel like, though, that these companies have really crossed the line.
Yeah.
I think they've crossed it. They've already crossed it. They've been crossing it. And they have been able to kind of hem and haw and make excuses and, oh, that was an error or, whatever. Enough is enough. I mean, I'm starting to think that we've got to do something about these companies that are doing this because this is dangerous to us.
They are affecting the nation's political process by banning and shadow banning and canceling out.
By picking winners and losers.
Right. Any other opinion but the one that is the narrative of the Democrats, by the way.
Yeah. And so the thing is that they need to either start paying all of us money for giving them content, because really Facebook sells me. Facebook sells you.
Right.
We are their content. They're not paying us because they're just a platform. But if they're a publisher and they're going to make editorial decisions and decide what gets seen and what doesn't get seen, then they're going to need to start paying people for instance, and they're also going to need to be held accountable for things that people post.
If they were truly the social platform they initially were or claimed to be, I would say hands off, government.
Yeah.
Don't touch
because
them.
It would be the Wild West.
Right.
Everybody would have access. Everybody would have free reign, and that would be fine.
Once they decide, though, to they have the power to editorialize and that kind of stuff. To me, they become publishers. To me, they're put under a different standard, and the government has every bit of a right to say, now we got to make sure that you're not, doing something that's enabling one party at the expense of another.
It's really a problem. I'm not really sure exactly what they should do about it.
Break them up.
Maybe. I mean, I hate to say it, but not that long ago they broke up Microsoft. Remember that?
I do remember.
Because they were getting too big and too powerful. Yeah. So they broke them up, and Apple took off and really kind of filled the void and took advantage of that. I don't know, Cleve.
Well,
I'm not an expert on this, but I know that it's a problem. I think we can all see that.
Well, it's more than even just a problem. Let us understand this. If by chance Biden and Harris were to win this election, what we're talking about now would become not only commonplace and not only the accepted norm, but it would be required. Literally, we would end up with one party rule and one party represented on the largest social platforms in the nation.
How would you like Joe Biden to run your Facebook page? Because you're right. That probably is where this is heading.
That's where it's headed. Because
worse than Joe Biden. How would you like AOC?
You're right.
To dictate what is on your social
because Joe
media
Biden
page.
doesn't know what he's saying or doing anyway. It would be the powers behind him that would be doing it. So this is serious business, and I'm hoping the GOP can find ways to run around this. Trump has. That's one of the reasons why he likes his rallies.
Yeah, the rallies. But see, this is a problem because they're doing this to Trump too.
But here's the thing about the rallies. They still have to cover it, is what I'm trying to say. To a certain extent, they can't ignore it. As a matter of fact, the networks are warring because I forget which network and they're the ones hosting the Trump town hall, and the other network is hosting Biden's town hall. And now there's a big complaint. I think it's ABC that's hosting Trump, saying, "No, that's not right. That's unfair," because they know that the other Biden's not going to get the ratings of the Trump rally, town hall rather. So Trump has to use every way he can to get his message out because he's going to be canceled any other way, and the rallies are helpful in that regard.
We have to start looking for alternatives to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all these things. Maybe there's a time when they need to be broken up, but we have to start looking at.
I'm on Parler now, but it's not on the status of Twitter yet. But I have gotten on Parler, the alternative.
Parler, yeah, I've gotten a Parler account as well, and I'm still trying to take the opportunities I can to explore it a little bit. I'm not sure I quite understand it, but see, that's the thing. You get used to and comfortable with these platforms, and it's hard to. Yeah. Everybody's on them. It's hard to break away.
I'd rather go ahead and break up those platforms and regulate them because unfortunately,
I just feel like something's got to give. It's because it's dangerous for us. It's really bad for us as a country.
How about Amy Coney Barrett? I always get her middle name mixed up. Coney.
It's she's pretty good.
Yeah,
she's decent. I think.
She's rock solid. She's unflappable,
she really is.
As she's had to be. Now, in all fairness, they didn't do a Kavanaugh to her because they dare not.
Oh yeah.
I think Trump's choice of her at this particular time was a masterful choice.
Apparently, they're smart enough to realize that they can't afford to do that to her. It's going to because that's going to look really bad.
And even the
they
things
look bad enough as it is.
Even the things they have tried have been kind of childish looking. Anyways, we had Marsha Blackburn, who's one of the Republicans on the committee. She just told Fox News straight out that Coney Barrett's appearance has just been great.
She is very intelligent, bright, well-informed, knows what she's talking about, and she did it all without a single binder or note in front of her. It really was an amazing 2 days of questions.
I was impressed by that. I mean, she didn't have to have all this prepared stuff to deal with their prepared stuff. She spoke off the top, and that's pretty good if you're being before these guys for hours and hours like she's been.
Yeah, she's really smart, and I heard Mike Lee talk about her a little bit, saying that she was unmatched from anybody he's known.
Wow.
For this position. That's high praise from Mike Lee. Mike Lee, his own self, in his own right, is a SCOTUS potential guy. Yeah, she's very impressive. Very impressive.
And the thing about it is, again, she crosses all the boxes for me. Not only is she a originalist as far as the interpretation of the Constitution is concerned, she's a woman of faith, a genuine woman of faith, and a family person. And to me, I love that combination of factors in her life. So,
yeah, she's great. I'm looking forward to having her confirmed. And 3 Supreme Court picks out of this presidency. That's a big deal. Man, I sure would like to reelect Donald Trump, though. I really don't want this 4 years to be it.
Well, the point is, the Democrats have signaled if we get in there, we're going to pack that court. We're going to take care of this. Yeah. We're going to take care of this Barrett nomination by just simply outnumbering all.
And by the way, the reluctance, the refusal of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to answer the question on court packing is amazing.
That answers the question for me.
Of course it does. They keep getting asked the question. We're not going to answer the question. You'll find voters don't deserve to know.
Yes,
my position.
Biden said that
on court packing.
Yeah.
You'll know after I get elected what my position is.
I can't say it now because I know that might not really register very well, and you know what I'm saying.
And you're right. That is an answer. We know the answer. He's gonna do whatever the Democrats tell him to do.
Yeah, and that's Joe Biden. He's an empty suit, literally empty on the inside in every way. AOC and all the progressives in that party will have total access to doing whatever they want to do.
Not to mention, Cleve, if think about this scenario for just a second. Democrats win the presidency. They turn the Senate. Now they have a majority in all three both legislation houses and the presidency. They can do pretty much whatever they want now. Mm-hmm. They get rid of the filibuster. They add 2 states, Puerto Rico and D.C. They stack the court. Our country is literally over.
Oh yeah.
I'm not being I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that, because when they just take stacking the court on its own, you've just delegitimized an entire branch of government. Do you think that we as a country are now going to tolerate what the Supreme Court says? Mm-hmm. It's going to be people aren't going to go with that. Mm-hmm. You've got to have some compliance with what the SCOTUS says, what their rulings are. And if they start to delegitimize that branch of government, people they're not going to go for it. States are not going to go for it. It's not going to work out very well. Things are going to start deteriorating rapidly. Our entire government will very rapidly start to deteriorate. Same thing if they add states. If they add 2 states, 4 senators, all Democrats, and all of a sudden liberals have these super majorities that they just basically snapped their fingers and secured. Cleve, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of states and citizens that are just not going to recognize anymore the legitimacy of our government.
You're not exaggerating.
At that point, why are we even doing this anymore?
Well, some people predict if that were to happen, we would see another civil war, which would still be the end of the nation.
I actually think you really want to trigger a civil war, that's how you do it, because you have totally taken over an entire branch of the government, really 2 branches, because you've taken over the Senate by adding senators and the Supreme Court. It'll get really, really bad. This is the future that Democrats want, and that we're going to see if they win the election. And people have got to stop thinking about Donald Trump and how much they don't like him. and the way he talks, his New York attitude, and his Twitter account, and realize what a Joe Biden presidency means. It's a disaster.
Yep. Well, that's a great point. If you want to hear the attitudes that the elite have and why what you're saying will definitely happen, there was an amazingly hostile exchange between CNN's Wolf Blitzer and Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if you heard it. You should. The whole thing, yeah. And it really reveals a lot about the progressive leader's attitude towards the media and towards her Democrat constituents. Let's listen to some of the conversation between Wolf and Nancy.
And it's not about me. It's about millions of Americans who can't put food on the table, who can't pay the rent.
And we represent them. And we represent them.
Getting
and
by
we represent
these
them.
long food
and
lines
we
that we're seeing.
them.
I know
we
you
know
are.
them.
I'm just saying.
We represent them and we know them.
As we
We
say,
know them. We represent them.
don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say
It is
here in
nowhere
Washington.
near perfect.
Madam Speaker.
Always the case, but we're not even close to the good.
All right, let's see what happens, because every day is critically important. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for your sensitivity to our constituents' needs.
I am sensitive to them because I see them on the street begging for food, begging for money. Madam Speaker, thank you so much.
Have you fed them? We feed them. We feed them.
We'll continue this conversation down the road for sure. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
That's the tail end of that conversation.
Yes.
In the context was Wolf saying, why won't you do this relief bill?
1.8 stimulus bill, yeah.
Yeah, why won't you at least do the part that everybody kind of agrees on so that people can get help because they need it? She says, you're a Republican spokesperson.
Yes!
Wolf Blitzer.
I mean, what? I mean, and see, here's the thing.
And he obviously took that personally, too, because you could hear him responding to her in kind of a snarky way as well.
Well, but, yeah, and all he did was he quoted some other Democrats, Andrew Yang and some others, who say, do the deal. If the important thing is getting this money to the folks who need it, then do the deal. And her attitude shows me how the Democrats feel about the media. You belong to us.
Yes.
You don't have the right to do this.
When he challenged her at all, he was now a Republican spokesperson. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be on my side. That was her attitude.
Yes.
And she responded very ugly to any kind of challenge, any kind of pushback on what she wanted to do. There are a lot of Democrats who were saying that, do the deal. And she was so shocked by being challenged by somebody in the media. Yeah. She got super ugly really fast.
It reveals what we said about them all the time.
You said it so well when you said their attitude is, we own you.
Right.
You're our media.
And not only do we own you, but she also, if you listen to her, saying, and we own our constituents. We're the ones that know what is best for them, when they should get it, how much they should get. They're our constituents. How dare you even say anything about them, because they belong to us. We're feeding them. We're going to feed them. Yeah. Doesn't that sound so demeaning towards even their own constituency?
Is she not the worst?
Well, but the point is, even though she was caught off guard, and this comes out, that's the spirit of the progressives in leadership, the elitism. In other words, we know better. We know how to divide up the wealth. We know how to take care of you for your health care needs.
We know you need help. We know that. But you know what would really help you is if Donald Trump wasn't president. Yeah. That's what you really need. You need a new president.
Go hungry for a while.
You don't need relief now. We need to do this politically to get rid of him, because that's really what's best for you. Yeah. That's what they're thinking. Their priority is getting rid of Donald Trump. They don't want to do anything that gives him any kind of leg to stand on, any kind of boon. They don't want to. In that exchange, they talked about sending out relief checks with Donald Trump's name on it, and how they don't want that politically.
Right. Not the fact that they're getting the checks, but that it would be him signing them off on them, and that's what they can't have.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
It's ugly. I actually appreciate some Democrats saying, "Do the deal."
Yeah. There are some who are sincere. I mean, they're still wrong, but they're sincere in their beliefs. This gal is about power.
When it comes to relief, by the way, again, let's mention this again. We did this several weeks ago when we talked about this relief stuff to begin with. The reason people need relief is because the government has shut down the economy.
Right.
And in some places still hasn't opened up. That's why people need the help. The government has done this.
Right.
So that's why it's
no fault of their own.
That's why it's the government's job to right that wrong. This is like a public domain kind of issue. That's why Cleve and I aren't saying, that this government spending is wrong or bad. The only reason it's bad is because they've been spending so much before. If you're ever going to lay down the credit card, it's when you're in a crisis.
Right.
Unfortunately, they spend like crazy even when they're not in a crisis. So now they double up the crisis. But the point is, it's all political to them. They think they own the media. They think they own their constituents. And they think they know what's best. And when Nancy Pelosi was exposed
when they're off script, that's what happens. That is what comes out. And that is the attitude that will carry the day should, God forbid, should the Democrats win. This elitism saying, now you're totally in our hands. They're not going to allow for any difference of opinion.
You're going to get censored.
Right. They're not of anybody who would dare challenge them to the courts.
By the way, words are going to start to change definitions on a whim. Did you hear? Because of the Democrats' talking points, and they decided that sexual preference, the term sexual preference, is now homophobic.
Yes, it's demeaning.
They just decided that
because Amy Barrett said it. She's used that term, and then the senator from Hawaii said that's demeaning to the gay community.
And that's stupid. But you know what really worries me about this is that the dictionary online, the dictionary, I don't know, it's a Webster or whoever, actually changed the definition of preference to include
sexual preference,
that it was possibly offensive because of this. They did it on the same day.
If that doesn't tell you what's going to happen,
this
I don't know
is so
what will.
Orwellian.
Yeah,
the dictionary is changing definitions based on Democratic talking points.
The same day, like you said, they didn't run this before their board of editors or anybody like that. Boom,
Cleve, it's scary.
Yeah.
This is the future we have to look forward to. They're changing definitions on a dime. I saw a Babylon Bee article that said that they're adding possibly offensive to every word in the dictionary just to be safe.
Anyhow,
but it's not good.
Laughing, but it's a serious matter, and it's what's at stake in November. So vote. And if you want to vote in the spirit of the Democrats, vote as many times as you can. We need to win this next election, David. You can catch this entire broadcast of Mere Conservatism again by going to...
you can go to Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe. You can leave a comment. You can see us on Facebook. You can see us on YouTube as well.
You want to see what David and I look like? Go to Facebook and check it out. You'll see I'm obviously the better looking of the two. This is Cleve Walker for David Perry, and we just wish you a very, very wonderful day. And we'll see you next time.